everyone, thanks for being here. I hope your day's going well. I've got my coffee this morning. I'm excited to be doing a new video on the Believe Beauty brand at Dollar General. When Belle and I went there recently, I had picked up a couple random things and was really impressed, and I was like, oh, you've got some different things on hand that maybe you haven't even featured in a video yet, or just some things that were newer to me since that first video I did, and I'll link to that one below because that covers a lot. But there's just even more to talk about, and over the past week on and off I've been just like trying things, testing things, and did a lot of that over the weekend, and I've just come into some interesting new finds I'd like to share. This whole brand is $5 or less, and it's an exclusive brand to Dollar General, so I think that's a pretty special thing. I have always been a small town girl, and I know for some people the drive outside their small town to get somewhere bigger is kind of a commitment, and maybe your only convenient makeup accessibility is happening through your Dollar General. So I think it's really special that they've got a high quality brand there where everything is kept, you know, in a very reasonable price point, and a lot of the stuff is really good. So we're gonna start off with some primer. I've got this Radiantly Primed face primer here, and this was one that I talked about as I was like rediscovering things in the makeup room in that recent video. I talked about this and how this is such a beautiful primer, but it's actually really pretty also if you want to just dot it on top of the skin over makeup, because the sheen is really there. It's a very beautiful glowy primer. So I've already got my skincare on, of course, and I'm just gonna take this all over, and you can see how glowy it is. Like super pretty. It kind of has just a hint of a golden glow, but it's still really light. And I would say there's kind of a smoothing quality that I feel as I go across the skin. The skin feels like it's gaining a bit more moisture, but it's smoothing somehow. Then the foundation. Now I've really been giving the foundation another shot lately. In that first video, I actually didn't have my appropriate shade and I was putting two colors together. So I guess it is kind of hard for me to come away from that video and be like, oh, I just love this foundation, if you haven't really even honed in on a shade that works for you. But since that time, I've gotten the shade Cashmere, and that seems to be my perfect shade in this foundation. It does have a pump. I use one full pump. And something I have been noticing about this, the staying power is quite good. I did wear test it in the first video I did featuring this brand, and it held up well, but I've really noticed here lately it continues to do so. And I'm going to use the buffing foundation brush from this brand to blend it in. Really a good brush. I think I'm going to work this in more. But as you can see, the coverage is, I would say, a strong medium. Once it gets all blended out, like there are still some areas where I'm like, yeah, I can still see my freckles in some spots. It's not completely blanking out everything, but it really is doing the work, you know, it's doing a good job. Blending it in with a brush as opposed to a beauty blender is going to maximize your coverage, but look at this. I'm seeing a matte quality to this, but it might actually be something that I put in the category of demi-matte. It's seeming like a really natural skin-like finish to me, and I gotta say, you know, I put that Lancome all over my skin the other day, and I'm more impressed by what one pump of this is doing right now. Like, it's every bit as good as that Lancome, you know, 5-star rated foundation. I'm just really developing an appreciation for this one. I think it's very good. Next up, we're going to use some concealer, or actually we're going to do the corrector first. I know I've updated you guys on the peachy corrector from this brand. It's the Brighten Up color correcting concealer in light to medium, and it was something that I hadn't quite been able to come up with before my first Believe Beauty video, but since that time I have. And as I've told you guys, you know, it's not God's gift to peachy correctors, I don't feel. It's a little drier than I'd like to see, but it is something. And I think about the fact that, well, maybe you could mix a little moisturizer with it. Maybe you could, you know, find a little eye cream that'd be a little more emollient and work it in with this product. That's a possibility. Right now I've dabbed that in all around the under eye, and I'm gonna just use a little bit smaller brush to work it in. The texture is such that I just see it on top of the skin a little bit more than I want to. It's not real far off from being a good product, but I think you really want to be cautious to work it in well. If I had a dampened sponge at the ready right now, that might help a little bit. But it's like, it's got a thickness to it, but it's not really taking away all the discoloration. So it's just not everything to me, but it's not awful. And I really respect the fact fact that they're cranking something out at all that's in that kind of product category. Now for concealers, I do have a couple shades here. This is another thing I didn't have at first from this line. I've got Ivory and Fair, and Ivory seems to be the little bit cooler one. And guys, this is crazy what happened to me on both of these concealers. I was using them, I was in the process of dabbing them all over the skin, and the doe foot comes off. Has this happened to anybody else? It's happened on both concealers for me. Like, what the heck? It just, like, I was stroking across the skin and it just popped off. Fell right onto the floor. So I could get a disposable doe foot. That might be nice for now. I don't have that, so I'm just gonna like dot it around. Maybe this is just a really great mechanism to control your application of concealer and not get too much on. But I'm doing a few dots right under the eye and a few right out here. I just think it's crazy that it happened on both. I mean, the first one feels like a total fluke. The next one is like, okay, y'all gotta attach these things better. But as for the overall quality of the concealer, getting past that little snafu, I do feel like it's a nice concealer. It's liquidy, it's light, it's not doing quite as much as e.l.f. Camo Concealer. So there's a real situation where the price point is definitely aligning. e.l.f. Camo Concealer is what, $5 or maybe $6 right now, and I think it's really beyond worth that. And with this one, I think you can tell it's brightening me up, but it just doesn't offer quite as much coverage as I see in Camo Concealer, Shape Tape, and just all those similar products. But it's certainly a nice option. If you're at DG and you're like, gosh, I gotta put something together here, I gotta come up with a look, and you've got this concealer at your disposal, like, it's not doing a bad job. And for a lot of people who maybe don't even care to have the world's fullest coverage in their concealer, it might be just about perfect. I'm trying to think what it reminds me of. It's reminding me a little bit maybe of like a L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow Concealer, but not quite as thin as that. Just a little bit thicker. But truly, when you look at the way everything's coming together at this point, this is all DG brand stuff, and I think the skin is looking great. You know, I might see a little darkness that otherwise could have been covered by a different thing or two here or there, but goodness, as a whole, I'm very happy with it. Now, another thing that's kind of new to me from this brand that I couldn't believe how good it was is the loose powder. This is in the shade Translucent. And at first when I was using it, I just thought, well, maybe this isn't necessarily going to be one of those special loose powders. Maybe it's just going to be a very standard, unremarkable loose powder. But I actually feel like this one really perfects the skin a little bit further. It just looks like this, super typical packaging, so you are going to have that coming out of the holes if you're tipping it around. But as I use this to lightly set my under eye, I just feel like I enjoy the look of the skin even more once I get this on. And it's light. It does not look heavy over everything. I can set my whole T-zone with it. This is just the translucent shade. I really like the powder. The foundation and the powder are certainly like highlights to me at this point. And that glowy primer, I really like that too. But see that? Like, it does a little something extra for your skin, but I can get up close and I don't feel like I'm seeing anything real powdery. Now, one thing my skin is lacking right now is some bronziness, because that foundation may have been a smidge light for my skin tone right now. And I got a couple different things that I'm gonna do. One, I have this All Over Glow Skin Illuminator, and I got it recently in this bronzy color. It's actually called Golden Glow, has a little pump, and I thought I might just get a little bit of that blended all over and then top it with powder bronzer. And so I've got a little bit of that here on the back of my hand. I'm gonna pick it up with my brush, and we'll just see how it goes. I haven't actually used it in this way yet. I've used it more as like a mixer with base products, and I really like it in that way. Maybe I should have done that with my foundation today. But it's real sheer. It's giving the skin a little bit more of a glow. I'm not using this thinking this is going to be some real strong like contour or some exaggerated look. I'm just using it lightly to see what happens. Kind of going where the sun might hit for now. And there's a lighter shade of this stuff too that's very pearly, like a really beautiful liquid highlight. But next, my main man, one of the things that I've been using the most continuously, I feel like, from this brand since the first time I really got into trying it, was this bronzer. I love the Tahitian Sun in the Tropics bronzing powder. It's so pretty. It's got some shimmer, but it's a really beautiful tone. And as I mentioned, the first go round with this stuff, the powder textures are really, really good. I know I mentioned liking that loose powder as well, but I'm talking like the pressed powders that make up their blushes and eyeshadows and bronzer. It's really smooth, very pigmented, just very surprising to come up with that good a quality pressed powders from this $5 dollar store brand. And not everything's going to be $5, some of it's going to be less. But I'm just applying that all over the forehead area. I'm going to get some here for a little contour. They also have a neat little like trio product that includes bronzer, blush, and highlight. See how well that works? Like, it's such a nice bronzer. I love how there's some glow in this. You know, you can really see that sheen, but it's not over the top. Once you get this all blended in on the skin, it looks really natural. Then for blush, they have a beautiful cream blush now. It's called Color Me Cream Blush, and I have the shade Dollface. So it's a really pretty pinky color, and the texture is just beautiful. It's every bit as smooth as like those new Milani cream blushes. It's probably a little bit easier to blend in than the e.l.f. putty blushes. And look at that color. Oh, I love this pink. I love it. And I'm just pressing it in with a semi-full, you know, synthetic brush here. This is one from Sephora where if you buy it on its own these days, it's called the 56. But just dabbing right over the cheek. It's so like thin but pigmented, and it's creamy. There's no shimmer in it, so you have full control when you go on top of that with like a highlight or some other blush. You can totally control your level of shimmer, but I think that's so pretty. I love the texture, love the tone. And then you guys know I've mentioned how fresh a bright pink pop of blush can be, and look what they have. They have this Born to Blush powder blush in the shade called Wink, and I would say it's a satin finish, really bright pink. I'm going to get a little bit of that on my blush brush and just kind of take it over the outer part of the apple of my cheek, get it blended in. I'm going to keep it kind of high. Oh, it's that shade. And the finish and the texture, it looks so natural on the skin. Again, with the powder texture, they're rocking it. Honestly, you know what their Corrector needs? It made me think of it because it's like the same style of packaging. Their Corrector just needs like a little bit more of the creaminess that this has. You know, just a little bit more of the thinness of their cream blush. Stick that in their Corrector. Oh, I'm digging the look. I am digging it. So now for highlighter, I've got a couple different powder highlights that I think are really pretty. The one called Pop of Pink, like actually it looks white, but it has sort of an iridescent pinkiness. This one called Pink Pearls is really pretty. I kind of want to show you the All Over Glow though, which is just the lighter shade of that bronzy stuff that I was putting on a little bit ago. Look at how glowy this can be, okay? Super, super glowy. That's one pump. So I'm just going to dab some right up here on top of the cheek, and then easily tap it in. See, I'm just tapping in because I don't want to affect the coverage of things underneath, and it's not causing me any trouble. Super pretty. I like versatile products like this where, you know, it can mix into something, it can make your foundation more glowy. I bet it would just be pretty like blended into a moisturizer, just a plain old moisturizer. Really enjoying that. I'm going to add it to the forehead as well. Texture on top of the skin. It might be a little more tacky than before, but nothing overboard. Add a little to the Cupid's bow. And definitely much more shimmery than that product from Maybelline, that new thing that I just reviewed, the 4-in-1. This is a lot more like pure highlightery than that. Highlightery. I'm gonna set this. They have a setting spray called the Makeup Perfecting Setting Spray, and it's a super fine mist actually. Like somebody sat down and really paid attention to detail on most everything with this brand. Like it's so just super fine mist. to the point where you might even want to take a couple extra sprays because it's just so like a cloud. To me, it feels a lot like after you put on Urban Decay All Nighter or Milani Make It Last, or the Catrice as well, where you pop on the setting spray and you don't really feel an overwhelming effect of dewiness from it, but it is going to help the staying power. Now for brows, I am going to use their brow pencil, although this is not one of my favorite things that they make. I have it here in light brown. I think I used maybe even a different shade the first time I did a Believe Beauty video, but I find these brow pencils to be a little too soft. You really got to watch the application. I think a too soft brow product, it kind of makes you wonder about staying power, like is it really going to hold in there? Is it going to smear around? But also if you're like me and you've got quite a bit of brow, it just kind of like, it gets clingy in there to your existing hairs. And I mean, thank goodness they do have the spoolie on the other end because I really need it with this product. But I would just love to see a little bit firmer texture on their brow pencil. I don't mind that it's a typical pencil thickness. I can be okay with that, but it's just really, really soft. I'm kind of surprised that light brown is working for me as well as it is though. Trying to think like what are the must-haves up to this point. Like I think the primer I love. See, that also can be a really pretty just dabbed on liquid highlight, the primer. If what I put on as liquid highlight seemed like kind of a lot to you, consider just getting that primer and using that as liquid highlight. But that I loved, the foundation, the loose powder, definitely the powder bronzer, and the powder blush as well, the cream blush. There's a lot going right to this point. They also have a little brow gel, so I'm going to throw that on. It's nothing remarkable. It has a small brush. I wouldn't say the hold is super outstanding or anything next level, but it's nice that they offer something. And then I'm going to use my Lock It In eyeshadow primer. They have a white one, and then this is the one called Universal. And my eyeshadow has worn really nicely on top of this. It's very like opaque, blank out your lids looking primer. You see what I mean? It feels almost kind of like you're putting concealer on over your eyes, which is fine. You know, I don't need something to be exactly like Milani eyeshadow primer. It's nice to have a different kind of option. If I want the lids more fully concealed, if a person's got a ton of discoloration in this area, this might be a really nice option for you. And look how brightening too. Like this is doing a lot just on its own if you wanted to just go with this product and this alone. And then as far as the eyeshadows go, I used a really pretty one in a past Believe Beauty video. It had like some charcoal in it, some gold. It had kind of a fun, varied, dramatic, shimmery color scheme. And what I've really come into loving here and rediscovered in my collection is just their nearly nude color palette. This one is so nice just for everyday looks. It's so well balanced. And again, powder texture, slaying it. Pigmented, smooth, creamy, gonna surprise you for sure. I know it's basic and whatever, it's neutral, but it's so good. It really is. It's probably one of my top things worth trying from the brand. So I'm gonna go to this shade up top that's kind of like a medium brownish shimmer, and I'm gonna get that going in my crease. It's really a fairly cool brown and maybe a little deeper than you'd expect, but it works fine for kind of just getting things set up here. And I'm just using my Profusion crease brush. They've got like a soft purpley color scheme. They've got a bluish palette. I mentioned this one that looks kind of like a ABH Modern Renaissance type palette, although it just doesn't have enough depth to really make me happy in using that palette and that one alone, but paired with this one, it's a little better. But to me, this is the most well-balanced little eyeshadow 6-pack they're selling. So I've got that shade just blended into my crease. Then I'm gonna take this sort of like peachy coppery shimmer, get a little bit of that on the brush, and I'm gonna let that come up above a bit. Just a little added warmth now. Then we're just going to take a bare blending brush and hit the edge of that. And then we have a lovely creamy matte shade up here. Really pretty and really perfecting. You know, just the texture of it. It's got a little richness to it and it goes over the edge of other shades really nicely. Next up, maybe my favorite shade in the palette, this beautiful, like, matte brown with a little bit of, like, rusty red in it. It's not glaringly reddish, but I see some of that in the tone. Dabbing this on the outer part of my eyelid, flipping my brush, getting it in the crease too. Could this start out in the crease? Absolutely. I just find it to be a little deeper than this other color that I first put there, so I think you might have a little easier time either using that or that in the crease first. But I would love to see Believe put out an all matte palette. All the textures are nice, but to nail the matte, deep matte texture on an eyeshadow is really impressive. What I'm saying is, can I join your creative team? Then I'm going to take a little more of that color, get it right on the tip of a little bit smaller brush, and just get that shaped exactly how I want it. I can't get over how easy these shades are to work with, how beautiful the color payoff is. And then going straight down into that shade once more, I'm going to take it down under for a nice, smudgy, pretty lower lash line. I mean, how do we argue with the beauty and the ease of these shadows? Okay, and then what do you say we go for a little bit of a brighter pop on the lid? I want you to see what this shade is made of, because this will make you be like, what? It's so beautifully pearly, shimmery, lovely. Oh, I can see this palette going to work. I can see this palette going to a special event. I mean, I can see it being bridal. Like, it's so nice. Take a little bit of that, let it come around your inner corner. Sure, why not? Love it, gang. Absolutely love it. Shades unused here. Was there just one? This like kind of dirty bronze right there, which is just fine to set up the crease as well. It actually might have been a little lighter than the crease shade I chose to use right at the start of the look, but I'm not seeing any fallout. I think it's a beautiful eye look. Nearly nude palette, highly recommend. Then eyeliner. They got a pencil liner. They also have a liquid pen that's maybe not the most deepest, darkest, blackest thing ever. And this pencil, it says long lasting eyeliner. This is the shade Enchanted. It's a rich brown. I think this can fade a little bit. It's super soft going on. It's an absolute dream to apply. The staying power, I guess maybe it kind of depends on what you're doing, but I felt like this faded kind of on me. But boy, does that go on nicely. It's just a retractable pencil, dark brown liner. I wonder how this brand is doing, like sales-wise. Are they thriving? Are people going to DG and buying this stuff? I think they should be. Very, very easy to put on. Shade is Enchanted, nicely pigmented. I question the staying power a little bit, but some days are different. Some days you're not rubbing your eyes, you're doing whatever. I'm gonna put a little light liner in the lower inner rim today. ABH double-ended pencil, always. And then you guys, the product that really like got me sort of re-excited about this brand again was this skinny mascara from the video where Belle was in it with me, the haul. This is so amazing. It's called High Definition Skinny Mascara, and it makes the lashes look absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to curl them first, of course. And when we move past this and we get to lips, that's where I feel like we need a little something new. We need something different. We need some tinted lip balms, or we need some, I need to explore maybe some new shades of the liquid lipsticks, because right now, like, I've got a couple of real bright colors. I've got some classic lipsticks that are, you know, fine. But anyway, back to the mascara. It's a skinny wand, as you would expect, short bristles. It's just kind of spiraled around, and you start putting it on and you're like, okay, this is going to be one of those subtle mascaras. We all know I'm not a fan of the subtle mascara, but you dip back in and go on for coat 2, and then you see the building taking place, and you're like, okay, this is actually going to be great, because it's giving me the look of more lashes. It's not clumping anything together. It's giving me beautiful added length and definition. It's not fighting with the curl that I've put in there. It's just so pretty. And also, something that I think a lot of people don't talk about with mascaras is the wand is just easy to use. So many big, thick mascara wands that come out these days. It's like it didn't have to be that way. You know, they could still be the formula that the brand wants to make, but put it on something that just doesn't force people to struggle so much with the application. And this one is actually just really, really nice. Builds up nice length, but keeps the separation going with your lashes. I need to look into the lip liners more from this brand too, because the ones that I have, again, they're in very bright colors that I just wouldn't use every day, like a bright red and a bright hot pink. And we all know that if you get a neutral lip liner, a really nice formula neutral lip liner, you'll use that thing all the time. So there's still a little bit I want to discover yet from this brand. Finding a foundation I can really get on board with, and finding a mascara. I mean, those are a couple of the things where people can be hardest to please, I think. And I can say what I want about that concealer not being like maybe as full coverage as e.l.f. Camo Concealer or whatever, but did it not do a really good job actually? Like, I'm so pleased with the overall look. It's just if I had my choice, if somebody was offering them both up to me, I would pick the Camo Concealer. And part of it is you can't be losing your doe foot. Like, the doe foot came off with 2 tubes of concealer. Let's rework that. I'm using a little Thrive liquid lash extensions because I haven't yet tested the other down there, and I'm just real slow to trust a mascara on my lower lash line. I've been burned a few times. Moving on to the lips, there is a lipstick shade that I have from this brand that I really like. It's the color called Vintage Romance. It's kind of like a cool pinky mauve shade. It's really pretty. But the color I'm going to use with this look today is called Moroccan Spice. I think it's perfect to go with this neutral eye. And to me, it feels like kind of like a slightly deepened nude. See, I think that's gorgeous. It's a very classic lipstick. It feels creamy. It's not overly shiny. That could be a very everyday shade for a lot of people. And I might like that even better than the Vintage Romance color. Now, I do have a gloss that we can put on top here. It's very sheer. It's called Prim and Proper. To see it on its own, you know, it just looks like a really soft, barely there pink. I can dab a little bit of this on. It was just a little bit of shine. Guys, I am super into this brand all over again. I feel like it's by far more hits than misses, and any little criticisms I might have over different things are really not anything earth-shattering or a super big deal. I felt like the brow pencil was super soft, softer than I would really like to use on a daily basis. I'd like to see that eyeliner be a little bit more like junk and set. I'd like to see the does keep their foots on their concealer. But honestly, the affordability of everything in this line and the finished look being what it is, like, I love it. I love it so much. I think it's a great foundation. I really do. Just having really put in some days wearing it here lately, I just realized how nice the staying power is and how comparable the coverage is, if not going beyond the coverage of some other much more expensive things. I think it really is good. Love this eyeshadow palette. Like, what a gorgeous look. The colors were easy to work with and blend and nicely pigmented. And this goes for powder textures throughout the line. I love that bronzer. I really enjoyed the cool pink blush as well. This one right here, that could have gone even harder if I wanted to. The Skinny Mascara is a must try. You need to check that out. And if you're in the market for a good cream blush, I mean, my gosh, that was great too. And we don't want to leave out this beautiful primer, which can also double as a really pretty on top of the skin pinpointed, but kind of subtle looking glowy highlight. I'd love to hear in the comments section, if you have tried it, what things do you love? What things would you steer clear of? Let's get the conversation going there. Thank you guys so much for your time. I love doing this video today, and I love you as well. I will see you soon. Bye.